welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie, and today I am joined by two very special guests. First off is Robin Garris, CEO and Principal Analyst at Metrigy. Robin, it's great to have you with us. How are you doing today?
Great to be here, Charlie. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Excellent, and it's great to have you. And I was just wondering for everybody who is watching, if you could just tell us a little bit about Metrigy and the exciting research that you do.
Yeah, sure. So as a company, I think our name says a lot about who we are. It's a combination of two words, metrics and strategy. So we conduct a lot of research with IT, CX, and business leaders, and really just learn a lot about what they're doing, who they're using, where they're spending money, where they're not spending money, what some of their priorities are, inhibitors, challenges, all sorts of things. And we take that data and do all things like this where we're speaking and we help organizations with their strategies, their CX and UC strategies in particular. And we do a lot of research. I personally do a lot of research in the CX space. So looking at how companies are basically transforming their customer experience. And so that's a lot of what I do, my research.
Excellent. And kind of on the theme of how companies are transforming their customer experiences, we have someone from a very prominent CCaaS space and kind of a very innovative company as well. And that second guest is Jonathan Allen, Chief Marketing Officer at Puzzel. Jonathan, how's everything with you today?
Good, thank you. Good to see you, Charlie. Hi, Robin.
Hello.
Excellent. And Jonathan, it's really great to have you with us. And the kind of, I highlighted there that Puzzel is quite an innovative company. I don't know if you could give us a little bit of an introduction into your role there.
Sure. So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Puzzel. I'm responsible for what you would consider as core marcom and also product marketing, which I think is aligned to the conversation that we'll be having today. And for those of you who don't know, Puzzel is, we like to say, Europe's leading CCaaS vendor. And we work with some of the biggest companies in Europe, helping them to combine technology and people to create lifelong experiences for their customers. So really looking forward to having this conversation today and hearing more from Robin.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of, you mentioned there that kind of Puzzel is a leading CCaaS vendor. That was recently very much almost verified from a recent report by Frost and Sullivan into the CCaaS space. Just quickly, before we kind of get into the wider CCaaS trends, could you just tell us how significant that is for Puzzel?
Yeah, I mean, it's significant. It's a European study, as you know, and it's based on two things. One is growth, and the other is innovation. The growth axis we expect to do well on because Europe is our home, but the innovation piece was a really strong, I guess, recognition from the market and most importantly from the customers that we're doing the right thing. And as you know, it's always tricky to work out how to focus resource, how to focus R&D, and it's a real fine line between delivering what customers say they want and working out what customers don't yet know that they need. And so, I think from that study, it tells us that we're hitting the right spot there. It is a lot to do with some of the innovation that we've brought in over the last 12 months. So we've made some really exciting acquisitions, and we've also built onto the product. And I think we'll be getting into that as we go into the conversation a bit. But yeah, I mean, we couldn't be happier. And recognition that we're doing the right thing. We're here for our customers, and that says that we're doing that in the way that we should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the word innovation a few times there, and it's, I think, one of the first trends that I really want to highlight actually in terms of CCaaS is kind of how a lot of CCaaS brands are starting to innovate with AI, and this was something that was kind of picked up in the report. Robin, it would be interesting to get your perspective here and kind of where AI is currently driving the most value in the CCaaS space. I don't know if you can share any examples.
Well, yeah, we conduct a lot of research on how companies are using AI in particular in CX, just in delivering better customer experience. I would say there's a few areas right now where we're really seeing value when we look at our business metrics. So we ask companies how their business metrics are changing when they use different technologies. So how is it improving or increasing revenue, decreasing costs, improving customer ratings, I guess improving is probably the right word there, and growing your or making your employees more productive. So those are kind of the four metrics we look at. So when I look at those metrics, I would say self-service is one of the big areas where we see AI playing a role. So just using virtual assistants for customers, certainly. So I'm coming in, I'm on a web FAQ, or I'm on an SMS and I'm communicating with the virtual assistant and I'm getting resolution. And we're getting better at doing that as an industry, I would say. There's other ways that companies are using AI, though, within self-service, too. One is about a quarter of companies right now, more planning to do this, are using AI just to update their knowledge management base. So, I mean, self-service is highly, highly dependent on having a really solid knowledge management base. And most companies don't right now. And a lot of companies right now are really working at improving that knowledge management base, trying to consolidate dozens of, separate knowledge management bases into one, and have, we hear a lot about the single source of truth, and just really trying to do that. And that takes some time. So once you have that really strong foundation, which will be the knowledge management base, you can do a lot with it. So about a quarter of companies are using AI to detect areas where knowledge management is not where it needs to be. Like, oh, here's an FAQ and everyone keeps getting stuck right here, so we need to improve the content that we have here. Or, wow, nobody's looking at all these textual pieces of content we have in here, but everyone looks at videos, or everyone's looking at everyone's listening to podcasts, or just really trying to use AI to follow customers and get some reporting and see where a lot of the activity is happening, and then updating the knowledge base almost automatically. So initially it'll require a lot of human involvement, but moving forward, just using machine learning there. Also using AI virtual assistants to triage customer intent. So somebody comes in over self-service, the virtual assistant pops up and can tell you, oh yeah, you can solve this right here in the knowledge base. Here's a link to the article, or here's a link to the form you have to fill out. Or, no, you're not going to solve this here. I'm going to escalate you right away to a live agent. So just having that triage take place has really been useful. And AI and machine learning can continuously learn and make that better and better over time. Other areas I will point to would be analytics. I think analytics for agent performance, using things like sentiment analysis. What was the sentiment on this call? Using analytics for even voice of the customer. So being able to look at what's the customer saying and then correlating those two. So when customers say this, what are our agents doing? When customers say that, what are our agents doing? And really trying to make everything as good as possible. Then you've got intelligent routing is a big one. So a customer, calls in or comes in over web chat. How do you get that customer to the absolute best agent for that moment in time? So that's a big place where we see AI coming in, based on your previous interactions, based on what other customers like you have done, which agent handles your situation best, and let's see who's available right now that meets that all those qualifications right away. And then lastly, I guess I would say probably call transcription. So using natural language processing for that and other things. I think NLP is a big one that we see, but call transcription is great because you've got a record of the interaction. It saves agents time after calls to not have to type in notes. They've got their notes. So those are some of the big areas that we see right now.
Yeah, lots of really great examples there. I love the stuff with the analytics, the predictive routing, and the post-call automation, the transcription there that you've just the examples that you gave. But I thought it was really interesting that you started there with conversational AI and knowledge management. I think this Puzzel were praised within the aforementioned report for their automated self-service. John, I don't know if you have anything to add to that and how you think Puzzel is continuing to innovate in the automated self-service space.
Yeah, and I hope I don't just repeat what Robin was saying, because I completely agree. I think one of the reasons that we focus on people and technology is because I think the industry has made mistakes in the past thinking that technology can fix everything. And so the point about the knowledge base is 100% right. And that even above that, I think a lot of companies don't think about the customer journey before they start to decide that technology is the solution. The customer journey is what we're trying to fix and what we're trying to make as easy as possible for people to go through. Technology can help that, and using AI in the best way can really smooth that self-service experience. And I think in the majority of places, people want to self-serve. It's quicker, it's easier, and we don't necessarily enjoy having that experience with customer service. So we see it in three areas. One is improvements in conversational AI, which is are you training your bot properly? Are you using natural language processing? We're trying to get to natural language understanding. And do you have the knowledge base to support what you're trying to do? I think we've all been in those situations where you can only the bot will ask you 3 questions, and your answer is none of those 3 questions, or your problem is none of those 3 things, and then you get stuck and there's nothing you can do. And so for us, it's about, let's make sure that the bot has been enabled, but let's also use AI to make sure that if there is a situation where someone is obviously not getting to where they need to get to, pushing them to an agent as quickly as they can. So that whole conversational piece is really important. I think we're starting to see companies do it well now. There's still some poor ones, but customers will do the talking with their feet, I think. The other one, which is really quite interesting for us, is actionable AI. And I'll give you an example of that. We've started with an acquisition that we made last year, being able to prompt people within the screen so that they could be going through a chatbot experience. For example, they want to fill in a loan form, and they're actually on the page and they're trying to fill in a mortgage form. Now, what the AI can do now is understand that is the wrong form, and actually direct them to the right place, and even highlight where they need to start filling in information. So it's almost like a real-time AI support on the website. And so we're starting to really dig into that, and I think that came out quite strongly in why we were ranked with innovation. And then the third piece is exactly what Robin was talking about. How do you provide a buddy to the agent? How can you use technology, particularly AI, to understand the sentiment of the call, to pull together information from the calls that may have happened before, or the social media conversations, whatever it may be, and give them suggestions on what the next best step can be. And I think finally, and then I stop. But it's about the training piece, and Robin said about the transcription. How can we use those transcriptions? Not just using sentiment analysis, but actually looking at speech analytics and giving that as information to a supervisor that can help use it as a training experience for that agent, so that they can start improving based on the call, because there's no way that someone can listen to every single call. So for me, it's those things. It's about helping people achieve what they want to do, making sure that bot experience is as close to if they were talking to a human being. And then how do we put our arms around agents and really support them in what is a very tough job?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, lots of really great examples there. And I love that agent assist, the entire kind of use case of that. That's definitely blossoming, I think, within the CCaaS space. And you also alluded to the kind of quality management use case of AI within your response too. But a lot of it kind of did focus on the idea of kind of harnessing AI and using that to almost kind of create more seamless journeys. And it was as you kind of referenced there, Jonathan, something that you were kind of praised for with Puzzel were praised for within the earlier report. Obviously, this seamless omnichannel journey is something that we've talked a lot within the space about, yet very few companies seem to really do it well. I don't know, Robin, you have your finger on the pulse on this. Do you think the situation is improving?
Unfortunately, no, it's not. This is one of the big areas that I've been speaking about and talking about out in the public realm and writing some things about. Omnichannel has really Actually gotten worse. Only about 21.5% of companies are doing omnichannel right now, which is a huge issue, especially when you consider that on average, companies are using 5.4 channels to interact with their customers. So if you don't integrate those channels, all you're doing is opening yourself up to problems. Customers are going to get frustrated because they're going to have to repeat themselves, and we've all been there, and it's frustrating. The agent might not have the historical context that he or she needs to actually help resolve a problem or address an issue, and it's really something that needs to take place. And as I ask companies why they're not doing it, it's just not a priority. Customers aren't complaining. Customers haven't asked for omnichannel. Well, how many customers do you know that really know what omnichannel even means, or even know how to articulate the problem that they're having, the frustrations that they're having. Others say they don't have a budget for it. And it's weird. It's one of those things that kind of took a nosedive during COVID. So we've been tracking this for a number of years. And it's been like this slow, steady upward growth of number of companies or percentage of companies using omnichannel. And then during COVID, like the 2019 year, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 30-something% were using omnichannel at that point. But I remember the first year of COVID, it was supposed to jump up like almost hockey stick up to 48%. So as everyone's adding all these new digital channels, they're saying, oh yeah, they're finally figuring out, well, we've got to integrate these channels. And then COVID happened and it just got completely deprioritized. So a lot of companies did not do it. And in fact, some companies, as you can tell by the numbers now, down to 21%, had to even pull all their omnichannel because they were suddenly in this unplanned hybrid environment of like an on-prem contact center and then a lot of remote agents on a cloud-based application, and their omnichannel was kind of broke, and they haven't gotten around to fixing it. So we do see about another 20-some% saying that they're planning to fix it. They're planning to do it this year. We'll see if that actually happens. But yeah, so far this is an issue.
Yeah, so definitely fingers crossed. But I think from a lot of recent research that's come out definitely kind of reflects that almost kind of pandemic nosedive
Yeah.
that you talked about there, but which I think was definitely why it was so promising to see kind of Puzzle score so well within the space of offering seamless omnichannel journeys. And Jonathan, one of the things that Puzzle in analyst reports in general is often kind of praised for is this kind of unified agent desktop, which paves the way for an omnichannel experience. I don't know kind of why you think this might be.
I think it's ease of use. Is the main reason, and I'd like to back up again what Robin's saying, that I think first of all it's a little bit rude as a business if you're happy to market to customers using multiple channels, but you're not happy to receive communication back. And social is a great example. People spend an awful lot of their marketing budgets on social media advertising, yet you can't send a direct message from most companies into their team. And so I think number one is that I think customers are going to demand it pretty soon, and I think with the cost of living crisis and inflation and all the things that are going on at the moment, the companies that don't look after their customers are going to quickly realize they're going to take their pounds or their dollars or their euros elsewhere. So I think it's, they need to kind of realize it's not an option anymore and they've got to provide omnichannel. I think a lot of them get afraid because of the complexity, which, going back to the question you asked me, is why it's simple for us. So, or why we get praised on our agent portal. It's a really simple, easy to use portal. And you can see the whole thread of a conversation irrespective of the channel that it came in on. And so from an agent perspective, they're looking at content. They're not looking at channel, which is the right way for them to be able to deal with it. The other thing is that we've built it in a low code environment for the reason that we can innovate more. So when like, I don't know, direct message, for example, we're starting to pull into them. But also it allows companies who are using the portal to integrate technology that they might be using themselves. So, for example, we've got customers who have their own internal communication tool that we can integrate and embed into our agent portal, so that the agent doesn't need to leave the portal. They don't have to go into multiple screens, so they can do everything from there. So I think it's three things. One is it's really easy to use, and it has all the information in one place. The other one is that we can innovate and bring in additional pieces. And then, the third is that in terms of, extra pieces that the company might want. And the third is that they can actually respond from there too. So you're not having to then go and open up another screen to respond. It's not a history of conversations. It's an interactive tool for them to be able to then contact the customer as well. So I think that's the reason it comes out so strongly, and it's the reason that customers love us too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of love that last example that you gave there as well, of kind of in equipping agents as well with Omnichannel to provide customers with more seamless experiences as well. And I think kind of another innovation, which is kind of the third trend I'm going to move on to now, is kind of a lot of the visual engagement tools that have been given to agents as well, in terms of co-browsing, video, screen sharing, and the like that. I don't just how important, Robin, do you think that such kind of visual engagement tools are becoming in terms of delivering next generation experiences?
Well, I personally think they're very important. We're now seeing about 52% of companies using visual engagement, and it could be various forms of it. Not all are using video. The most common one that they're using is actually screen sharing. So you think about things like application support, or just, I want to show you something that I'm seeing, whether it is a screen share or whether it's I'm installing something and it's not going together as your instructions say. I want to show you what I mean. Or I want to talk to my investment advisor, and I want to see you. I want to talk to you. So I want video. So there's all sorts of reasons for it. Like I said, we're seeing about 52% of companies doing that right now, but we also see huge business metric success when companies use visual engagement. So just to give you some numbers in our research, before and after numbers, when organizations started using any sort of visual engagement tool, 26% improvement in customer ratings, 21% revenue increase, a 16% drop in operational costs, and about a 23% improvement in agent productivity. So those are some really, really good numbers just by adding one application. And, I just think right now the issues are that a lot of companies are kind of bolting this on, and they're not truly integrating it in with their contact center. So, I'll be on a web chat with someone, let's say, and they say, oh yeah, it would be really good to either do a video or share screens. And I get a link to, whatever the company's internal meeting platform is. And now all of a sudden it's not integrated to what I'm doing in the contact center. So it's not going into my, my CDR. It's not going into my transcript for the call. I might not be getting screen pops. It's not integrated. It's helping because I can see or I can show, but it's not that fully integrated experience. That about 2/3 of companies are complaining about that right now, that they want it to be fully integrated. So that's what we're seeing with the visual.
Yeah, lots of really fascinating metric results there. And that theme of integration, I guess it comes back, lack of integration. I guess it sounds like quite an old conversation, but it really does kind of seem to be at the precipice of a lot of CCaaS conversations at the moment. But yeah, I think as you said, visual engagement definitely is growing in space. It'd be great to see how that continues. And I guess for Puzzel, it's very much continued in the launch of your new smart chatbot, Jonathan. Why do you believe solutions like this are kind of such a game changer within the space?
So I think part of it is the example that I gave before, that we can just make self-service actually self-service, because you can start guiding someone using AI within the bot. But the piece for me that's particularly interesting is the expectation on the agent. And so I think, the more we perfect self-service, the more when someone actually does need to speak to an agent, so whether that be, a high value purchase, or it's, you know, it's a maintenance, you know, and as Robin said, you know, you don't need to necessarily send a maintenance engineer out if you can actually turn your screen and show what's wrong and they can talk you through it. But what I was going to say was that I think the expectation on agents is going to go up significantly, because what you don't want to do if you've gone through the self-service experience is then get to an agent who doesn't really know what they're doing. And that means that that agent needs to have a lot of information about you as an individual. They also need to have empathy, and they need to have the ability to communicate with you. It's much easier to do it through video than it is on a telephone. And so I think, you know, for multiple reasons, that's the way it's going to go. We have embedded ours because our view is exactly what Robin said, that, you know, you don't want to be then having to go somewhere else or sending a separate meeting request. You want to be able to do it within the session you're in and just pop up and be able to talk to somebody. So that's where we're going. But I think it's the future. And the reason I think it's the future is because the self-service will get good to be able to solve, you know, let's say 80% of situations. And when it's not those 80%, you want a human conversation, which is not on a telephone. And they need to be able to, you know, take control of the screen if you give them permission to do so, to guide you through it. So, yeah, it's a really exciting area. I think it's going to take us to the next level with customer service, because it's always in the past been a little bit reactive. And this is the opportunity that we've got to actually give people what they really need and do it in a proactive way. And it's going to make it human again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really interesting there within your answers, we almost came back full circle there in terms of, you know, where we started the conversation in terms of the rise of AI, kind of the decline of omnichannel customer service we've also talked about. But there's progressions in visual engagement are definitely going to be one to look out for. And I think my final question will be to you, Robin. Obviously, you keep your finger well and truly on the pulse within the industry. And, you know, we've talked about three really interesting trends there, and I don't know if there's any others that really spring to your mind that you think are kind of really right at the precipice, I'll use again, of the CCaaS arena.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say even CX in general, you know, just like, so what are we doing to improve CX? And one of the big things I saw in this year's research that was very encouraging, this was just in April, so it was when the economy had already started becoming quite, you know, unstable, and we still saw that the spending in CX is very strong. And we measure a success group against a non-success group in our research, so we look at hard metrics as to how, there's a whole bunch of ways to do it, but like how companies that have measurable, the top measurable improvements in their business success metrics. So in our research success group, they're spending about 93% more, so almost double what the non-success group is spending in CX. So it's basically in US dollars, it's $2,700 versus $1,400 per employee. So we just normalize the data by dividing their total spend by employee. But that's huge. And you don't always see that companies are successful because they're spending more money on technology. That's not a given. But in this case, it really, really is. There's also growth in the addition of new channels, including video. So we kind of talked a little bit about that. But what I think is more interesting around that is that there are, in fact, in the last 2 years, fewer as a percentage of the total interactions coming into any contact center. There are fewer interactions happening in digital or non-voice transactions than there used to be at the height of the pandemic. But the big thing is, once in those digital channels, so non-voice digital channels, we're resolving more. So it used to be, you know, 60-some%. Now it's like 75% that we're actually resolving in those digital channels. So we're getting better there. But that said, I would say, you know, despite like the growth in virtual assistants that we were talking about a lot here today, companies are still increasing the number of contact center licenses. So I get that question every year, like, oh, all these virtual assistants are going to take over the need for people. And I don't see it ever. I ask about this every year. So people are growing their virtual assistants, yes, but they're also continuing to grow their licenses. About 52% of companies, as of April, plan to increase the number of contact center licenses by the end of the year. And about 7% are decreasing. The rest are staying flat. So I think that's an important thing. Just a couple other things I think I mentioned. We are starting to see a lot of interest in journey mapping, you know, so I know that was an area, Jonathan, you alluded to earlier, just being able to have the tools to do those good journey maps. And I think that's really important, both agent and customer journey maps, by the way. And one other thing I will point out, because you just mentioned empathy, and we actually asked some questions around that. And we're seeing that the interest in that and actual, it's not just interest in, it's actually action on empathy is growing. So right now, just over half of companies are actually training their agents on empathy and being more empathetic during interactions. And about a quarter of companies are actually using AI to track agent empathy, and that's part of their performance analysis. So I thought that was kind of cool too.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. It's because we kind of just assume, as you say, when you hear of AI in the contact center, it is all AI is going to take over agents. But the amount of use cases that you both kind of spoke to today about enhancing the performance of agents is truly remarkable. And I think kind of those headlines that we saw maybe 5 years ago of, this, the end of the contact center as we know it, is very much kind of over the top. But it's been lots of fascinating trends that we've ended up discussing today. So yeah, thank you both for joining me. As I say, I've learned a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. And thank you for everybody for watching too. Bye for now.